How are you doing, everybody? In this episode, I'll be taking a look at 5 wide receivers that have greatly exceeded expectations here for Week 7 fantasy football, maybe even a couple of weeks prior. And we're going to be looking at scenarios where you can take these players and potentially sell them for more valuable assets for your team, whatever that might look like, your individual situations. If you've got something you want me to take a look at, put that down in the comment section below or join our community Discord server in the description of today's episode. There's a free invite link down there. Go check that stuff out. But again, talking through 5 wide receivers and potential scenarios to offload them from your rosters and approach other more valuable assets for your teams. With that being said, not going to waste too much more time. Let's dive straight into today's episode. As always, if you're new around here to the SFS channel, my name is Gavin. I'm here to be an interactive tool and resource for you guys this season. So, like I said, check out some of those functions and opportunities in the comment section or the Discord server. Subscribe if you're around here. We'd love to have you at the channel. Fun fact, Tyler Boyd, Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver. We have never talked through him here on the channel, at least as the focal point of our conversation. Now, for whatever reason that is, we're starting that off today, so I had to make myself a fun graphic, made sure to put a pretty cool picture of him in there for that. But Tyler Boyd here, unfortunately for him, the first time we're talking about him on the channel is a situation where I'm looking to sell high after some pretty legit performances here, but the overall sustainability of that production is fairly questionable when you take a look at his role in this offense and really chart that out and project that going forward. So what I mean by that is right now Tyler Boyd is the wide receiver 14 entering into week 8 for fantasy football. And that's an elite level wide receiver 2 in a 12-team format. So that's simply not something that I expect to be the norm going forward. He is coming off a game where he had 8 receptions on 9 targets, a great catch rate there, 153 yards, including a nasty one-handed catch, and a touchdown. And until Jamar Chase went totally berserk and lost his mind in that game, this guy was going to be the story of that Cincinnati Bengals offensive attack, and also Joe Burrow went completely bonkers. So he went from, kind of being the star of the show to being outshined by 2 of his teammates here in the span of just a few plays. But this is still a guy that balled out in this game, has had some really impressive numbers this year in spots that, after all, is how he is the wide receiver 14 right now. But he's only had 3 double-digit games on the season so far, and all 3 of those games were performances in which he scored a touchdown. And as this team slot receiver working against tertiary coverage from the opposing defense, he's going to get that done, and he's going to be a player that can do these types of things. The sustainability and the predictability of it, though, is going to be really, really hard to know. All right, it's week 9. Should I be starting Tyler Boyd, yes or no? Like, those types of scenarios are going to be, and now that I just said that, I think that that's actually his bye week, so no, you shouldn't. I could be wrong on that. I just have to double check that. It's a week out still, so I haven't quite looked at those things. Just having, memories from draft season, seeing that number 9 next to the Bengals players, but possibly wrong there. We'll see. Regardless, just using that as an example, it's hard to predict and really know when and what circumstances you're going to want to start Tyler. So that in itself is a bit of an inconvenience for fantasy owners, makes it a bit tougher to know exactly what to do with him. I would rather move him for a player that I feel more comfortable in assessing and predicting his usage on a week-to-week basis. And like I said, he's a talented player. There's a point in time where he was the number 1 receiver for this offense in the immediate post-AJ Green era here. But right now he's the number 3. You got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, plain and simple. Those are the guys that are more valuable to this team, although this offense does run through the receiver position. Brandon Aiyuk here, a player who is currently the wide receiver 20. Some ebbs and flows of this position group, some big, hot performances as of late, some down performances and bye weeks for others have led to kind of his fantasy emergence in terms of his overall point production right now. And I do know for a fact, off the top of my head, that San Francisco's bye week is week 9. So whether or not the Bengals is, doesn't really matter, I guess. But, excuse me. As I said, he's the wide receiver 20 here, entering into week 8. That puts him in the wide receiver 2 realm of things. However, I still view him as a wide receiver 3 going forward. Now, Aiyuk is definitely more talented than some of the players that, from a fantasy angle, I would value higher than him right now, simply because of his route running and run after catch ability. He's been able to get plays done, and the last 2 weeks in particular, he's had a unique situation where he has tied himself in back-to-back weeks for having his highest target opportunity of the season with 11 targets per game, 22 total for the last 2 weeks here. So plain and simple, what it comes down to is I think those 2 games were unique game scripts and situations, circumstances for this team, and I don't think it's sustainable. So you bring in Christian McCaffrey, he plays 28% of the snaps this week. That's going to go way up here, and you're going to see him be a focal point of this offense. B, I think Deebo Samuel is still the alpha here. I get it. Brandon Aiyuk is a dang good pass catcher, route runner, after catch phenom. But Deebo is still more valuable in this offense. And I just think that between that, you've got him as at best the third option, kind of vying with George Kittle for that number 4 utility. So there's a lot to make your way through here. I think that it's fairly reasonable to be a bit pessimistic going forward. Those unique game scripts I talked about were Kansas City, where they got blown out and they were playing negative game script football for really, kind of the second half of this contest. And then you also had the week prior to that Atlanta, where you trailed 28-14 for a long time in that matchup. So again, he did score early in that game. He was productive throughout, but unique circumstances, I think, lead to these unique situations and levels of productivity for talented players like Aiyuk, but guys who I just don't think have the infrastructure built offensively for consistent production just based off of the quarterback play and surrounding talent that I think takes precedence over him in terms of week-to-week opportunities. So looking to sell him high there. Next up here, we've got JuJu Smith-Schuster of the Kansas City Chiefs. Literally a carbon copy of the first piece of analysis there. 2 hot games, his 2 best games of the year, have resulted in him being a top 20 fantasy wide receiver right now. But the thing I'll toss out to here and use it for food for thought is that this week we saw fantasy lineup production games, like games worthy of being a starter in your lineup, by Mecole Hardman, by Travis Kelce. We saw CEH find the end zone. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had himself roughly 100 yards in this matchup and on 3 receptions was a fantasy relevant player. And we also saw, I believe his name is Justin Watson, score a touchdown as well. Patrick Mahomes threw for over 400 yards in this game, and this offense had elite levels of productivity. It's just really, really hard to know who it's going to be every week, and it isn't everyone every week, if that makes sense. This week, it was everyone. This was one of those great weeks. It's surprisingly been back-to-back weeks, and I said this earlier last week. I bet on him as a sit candidate for the week. Was I wrong there? But I didn't think that they would do this in back-to-back games. That'd be a more lower-scoring defensive battle here, and I thought that these 2 defenses would play each other very well. Of course, things got out of hand very quickly for the 49ers. So, the moral of the story here is that right now, the last 2 weeks, he looks like a top 12 wide receiver. I don't know if that's the case going forward, though. I have strong doubts about his overall talent and utility as a player. He's a nice, versatile chess piece at times. You can put him in the slot, move him around, and he's okay after the catch, but I feel like something's missing here. I think that the consistency element is something I still worry about. You don't really know who it's going to be for Pat Mahomes every week. He's talked about it. Some weeks it's going to be Hardman. Some weeks it's going to be JuJu. Every week it'll be Kelce, that's for sure. I also don't know if I mentioned Clyde Edwards-Helaire scored a touchdown as well. So everyone was getting fed in this game. And those are great, and Mahomes is capable of delivering these performances. But if you can get him sold off of your roster for a player that means more to your unit going forward, that's the move you have to make. It's as simple as that. And I think that, again, this level of opportunity and production from JuJu at this point is a bit unsustainable. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you disagree with me. It's fine if that's the case. And if you're going to, at the end of the day, if you want to rest your laurels on one thing, it is that he's catching passes from Pat Mahomes. So that in and of itself is a great factor and boost to your situation. It's just something's holding me back a little bit here from expecting this type of thing consistently going forward. DJ Moore, this one, I hate being so negative with the Panthers and DJ Moore's fantasy outlook, but the reality of the situation is it's a pretty simple sell high candidate here. If you want to be the guy, I said this in the running back episode, I actually meant to save this little one-liner here for DJ Moore, but if you want to play Russian roulette with DJ Moore in this Carolina quarterback room, be my guest. Like, if you want to sit back there every week and guess and just hope with all that you can that the quarterback is going to be the guy that you want back there. I've seen a lot of optimism surrounding Sam Darnold because of the target share that he provided for DJ last season. Maybe this week now has got you in the PJ Walker hype train. I know a lot of us, including myself, are off the Baker bandwagon 100%. Both feet have gotten out of there. I really never had any feet in. I just thought that, if he continued to pepper DJ in the preseason, that, it'd be great moving forward here, and, his passes might be slightly better than Darnold's. Nope, not the case. So I'm going to bail on the fact that he scored a touchdown, had his second double-digit point performance of the season. He had 10 targets, 7 receptions, only 69 yards, though. It was his first nice performance of the season, if you will, and again, had that touchdown. So the numbers were good. He was worthy of a lineup start in this week's games, but projecting that going forward, the consistency of the quarterback play, the overall effectiveness of what this offense can be every week. Yes, they'll have negative game scripts. This week they didn't, surprisingly, and that's the week he comes out here and puts up this performance. And I hope that Sam Darnold's the answer for him, but we saw a whole season of that last year. Not a whole season, but the attempt to be a whole season of him last year. And while the targets were there, the target quality was not. So for me, it's like, what's the lesser of the evils? What is the situation that gives him the best chance of being like a flex candidate for teams? And ultimately, that's where you'll find yourself having the most success with DJ Moore. But at the end of the day, the predictability of this offense is still very, very low. And I think that for DJ, I still expect erratic flex productivity levels from him moving forward. Of course, this week his productivity put him in the, probably the wide receiver 2 territory. He probably wasn't quite good enough to crack the top 12 here. But it's nice to see the targets there. It's nice to see the touchdown. It was a really impressive toe drag touchdown as well in the back line of the end zone. But for DJ, I'm sorry, buddy. Still moving on after this week. And then last but not least here, I saved this for the end because I know, and I was actually kind of hesitant to put this in today's episode, I know that someone is going to read the timestamps of today's episode, not listen to this take, and then they're going to just lose their mind in the comment section, not understanding the context behind this trade scenario. There is one reason and one reason alone that I will sell Ja'Marr Chase in Week 8 fantasy football, and that is this. With the severity of issues, particularly injury-related at the running back position, think Breece Hall. That's the one screaming off the paper and that everyone's freaked out about here. I get it. Do a 2-for-1 trade. The best way to solve a problem in your roster is suck it up, sell one of your high-end options, and get 2 starting level players back in return to compensate that loss. Ja'Marr Chase is coming off of his best 2 games of the season. Back-to-back 130-yard, 2-touchdown performances, a.k.a. 260-plus yards and 4 tutties in the last 2 games out here. I love Ja'Marr Chase. I am one of his biggest fans here, but this is a scenario where some teams will find their hand forced. You need to do this. Running back depth, we are, in a lot of cases, if your league ends Week 17, we're not even halfway through the year yet. It sucks. You hate to lose this caliber of an asset, but this is how you rebuild your team and adjust from losing one of the game's best players in Breece Hall or other running back issues that are flaring up here. Of course, we've got frustrated James Conner owners. We've got frustrated, players that aren't producing what you want them to. Leonard Fournette last week struggled. We've got other options out there as well that are just, I'm sure someone's panicking on Christian McCaffrey. Probably not too applicable to this situation. Just thinking of stuff off the top of my head here. The moral of the story, the end goal here is not to sell him for an upgrade. You're not selling Ja'Marr Chase for Stephon Diggs. You're not making a 1-for-1 deal to do something fancy and try and get the best player out of this. No, that's not what we're going for here. It is simply a 2-for-1 distribution of assets throughout your lineup to make your team deeper and to make your team better. I've seen some opportunities in our Discord server this week that I was really happy with. I thought they were intuitive trades. They were smart approaches where you're trading for Dameon Pierce plus receiver X that can potentially be a fringe wide receiver 1 or a high-end wide receiver 2 that gets you 2 starters for 1 and fills that big position of need for your team. So that is all. The analysis is no more complex than that. So again, please, I'll be a little annoyed if people take this out of context. And like I said, it'll probably happen, and that's fine. But it is an option for those of you guys that have these scenarios in your lineups where you're struggling and you're looking for some help. So it is an option. Know that it's out there. As always, if you guys have questions, please put them in the comment section below. I said this in a couple other of the trade episodes. We drop 4 of these every Tuesday morning. I apologize last week. I had some stuff going on in my personal life. Wasn't able to dedicate as much time to responding to comments in the YouTube phase. I still was able to thankfully get back to pretty much everyone in Discord this week. I usually prioritize those first, so all the more reason to jump on in there. It's just, an added level of commitment to the channel here. It's totally free. It's just that you guys are willing to hop in there and have conversations with each other and stuff like that. So I got back to all those, but it was pretty sparse in terms of the replies I got out there to comment section users last week, so I apologize about that. My 100% intention is to do a lot more interactivity with you guys this week, like we've been doing here for the last 3 NFL seasons. It's a one-time occurrence out of 3 years here that we haven't been quite as good about that as I wanted to. So be patient with you guys. If you put something in there later throughout the week, hopefully I get back to it. Another good method of getting a hold of me is dropping new content every single day here. Sometimes within a 36-hour period, let's say, of dropping a video, I'm kind of moving on to the comments in those newer episodes. So if you found I haven't gotten back to you in one of those initial videos after 36 hours or so, probably no more than 24. I know I can't stop you guys, and I want you guys to ask these questions, but if you just repeat the comment in a newer episode, the chances of me getting back to you in that video then become higher, just because that's the comment section I'm working on and prioritizing, skimming through the most. So that was a lot there to end today's episode. I just want to let you know, let you guys know my situation going on from last week and how that'll be different here in week 8. So as always, I appreciate the heck out of you guys for sticking with me through today's episode. Our week 8 playlist is live on the channel right now, so go check that out. We've got waiver wire clips, trade advice, all that great stuff. We're going to get into lineup advice tomorrow. Stick around for that stuff. I'll see you guys in those episodes. Peace out.